We welcome you to this 54th series of UNCCLA Listens and Speaks. Tonight, we are privileged to host Reverend Father Dr. Andrew Kato on a very, very important issue, which of late, for the past 1 month or so, has brought a bit of storm, if I'm to use the word. And that's what we are going to discuss. Understanding the Vatican guidelines concerning blessings of same-sex unions. But before we go on with the details of the program, once again, good evening, and I welcome Father Kato. Thank you very much. You are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matega.
Yes.
For this.
Father Andrew Kato is a canon lawyer and is very well versed with the church law and also civil law. We always host him whenever we need clarifications when it comes to church law and everything. This time round, as we've said, we are standing here. We are not the spokesman of the Vatican, so we should not be construed like that. However, for pastoral reasons, we needed to give guidance and clarifications over what was sent out from the Vatican. First of all, say a simple greeting to the people, to our listeners and viewers.
Yes, our viewers and our listeners, good evening to you all. And we are privileged this evening to discuss this important issue, which to many of us, especially those who are baptized Christians, has caused some disturbances in the minds of people. And to those who would really laugh at these issues, it has been a good occasion for them to ridicule in all the possible means the church, and also to ridicule the Holy Father, the Pope, and to many of the Christians, many of the baptized people. This has caused a lot of disturbances in their consciences, in their minds. It has caused some confusion, and causes confusion to some of us, Christians, believers. And so that's why this evening, at least we are here to give a discussion. To some, even this topic, discussing such an issue, they look at it as an issue which shouldn't be touched in any way.
Taboo.
It's a taboo. Should never even be addressed. And so that's why it has caused a lot of confusion in some minds of the people. So, yes. Mr. Matega, we are privileged that at least we discuss this issue as Christians, as believers, as baptized persons.
Yes.
So that we try to understand somehow some of these issues.
Okay, Father. To set the ball rolling, on the 18th of December 2023, the Vatican, through the Dicastery of the Doctrine of Faith, sent out a declaration under the title Fiducia Supplicans, but in our English, you say on the pastoral meaning of blessings. And within that very document, a lot was discussed about blessings. By and large, the document, the declaration, affirmed the doctrine of marriage as understood by the Catholic Church. Its indissolubility and its nature, that marriage is between a woman and a man. That one, the document confirmed. However, within that very document, certain aspects arose concerning blessing of what the church called irregular unions, or people in irregular situations. And within irregular situations, the Father will give us clarifications, but I think one of them is same-sex unions, and possibly divorced and remarried, possibly, or those other irregular unions. But let's start from where we are supposed to start. We are talking about blessings, we are talking about unions, we are talking about, Father, what is exactly a blessing? So that we put things in perspective. What is a blessing?
Yeah, from the perspective of catechism, because definitely a discussion of this nature is catechetical. From that perspective, a blessing is because we have two things. We have a sacrament and we have a sacramento.
Yes.
When we are talking of a sacrament, you know, from the Latin, sacramentum, we are talking of a sign, but a sign which evokes certain sentiments in us. For example, when we have the Eucharist, we have the signs there, we have the bread and the wine. But this evokes certain sentiments in us. And what are these sentiments that are evoked in us? The presence of God. In other words, that a sacrament directly puts us in contact with God. Mm-hmm. A sacrament makes us come in contact, direct contact with God. And so that's why these sacramentals which are evoking these sentiments about God have been instituted by Christ himself.
The 7 sacraments.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so the church, in its pastoral perspectives, sees that there are also other signs that help us to come in closer contact with God. But these are not established by Christ. The church has established these. Mm-hmm. The church establishes them. And among these is what is the issue at hand of the blessings. So blessings they are signs. They help us to come in close contact with God, but not in a direct manner, like the sacraments. So a blessing in this way, as we were asking, what could really be a blessing in a simple way? A blessing, it's this person who is this baptized person, this Christian person. We are talking about a blessing from a theological point of view, mm-hmm. not from a culture or from any other perspective, or from a legal point of view, or from a political point of view, but from a theological point of view. That this blessing, therefore, becomes a sign. But a sign of what? A sign of faith. A sign of faith whereby me, a baptized person, come to the church expressing my faith in God, the faith that I have in God. And many times that with a blessing, I'm invoking the mercy of God in this sign.
So that is the purpose of the blessing?
Yes.
To invoke?
To invoke the mercy of God. In other words, that me who is coming, I come with a situation of needing the mercy of God, needing God to show me, to direct me towards Him, to direct me to do His will, to do what conforms to His will, what conforms to His law, and in this case, it's the divine law. So, whenever I'm coming for a blessing, because it's not a sacrament, mm-hmm. I'm invoking the mercy of God. I must come with that concept. Unfortunately, many times, we look at a blessing as something which is magical. Especially when we are talking about a blessing with a priest. That is, I go to a priest, he does what he does. He
gives the sign of the cross.
And so, if, for example, I've brought my car there or my house there, bring my car there, that it may not have an accident. This kind of understanding of looking at a blessing in this way is disguised, because it looks at this blessing as an insurance.
And I thought that's, when we talk about blessing, there is an aspect of luck. Goodwill to come to me.
That's now where
approval.
That's now where the trouble comes, especially in this interpretation of what it is fiducia supplicans states. So with a blessing is that it's me who is coming. I'm invoking the mercy of, I'm calling on the mercy of God. I'm, so to say, telling God that I am nothing and I need to know the will of God. I need to know the will of God. So I'm on a journey. I'm on a journey. So that's why we are looking at blessings from the perspective of helping us, helping one to enter into a journey, into a dialogue, to find the will of God, to know the will of God. So it's not something which is magical. It's not, a blessing is not a go ahead, because many times we think that a blessing, it's a go ahead. Now that's why I said we are looking at this blessing from a theological point of view, because perhaps for some, in some cultures, a blessing is a go ahead.
Truly.
I go to a certain elder to give a go ahead to what I'm intending to do, to what I'm in.
Father, exactly that's what we thought, that when I go before my parents for a parental blessing, when I'm going to marriage or whatever, in dialect we are saying that, please, through those God-given faculties, you are wishing me the best. If I'm going for a marriage, let your marriage be the best. So that's the blessing. Whether understood from the theological Christian point of view or even culturally, when I say parents are giving a blessing is that approved, go ahead, in order, let whatever is good come to you. That's, I thought, what it means to be in a blessing.
That's why now we are looking at this question of blessing from a Christian theological
point of view.
Okay. Perspective. Because in that way, many times people go, for example, to elders, to parents for blessing, implying a go ahead.
Exactly.
Now, from a Catholic, a Christian point of view, theological point of view, a blessing, you are invoking the mercy of God. You are putting yourself at the disposition of the mercy of God, that you are nothing. And so you wish to know, you wish God, really, you wish to do the will of God. So you are invoking on his mercy. So you see there's different perspectives of looking at a blessing. And the moment we don't distinguish this, then this is the crossroad at which we come. The crossroad at which we come is that now this blessing which is given by the church is a go ahead. It's something which is magical, automatic. That's the issue.
Father, when we read this document from the Vatican on the pastoral meaning of blessings, now they talked about a liturgical blessing and then a casual blessing.
Spontaneous.
So even the very word casual, casual blessing, as if it's not a serious, a blessing is a blessing.
The document uses spontaneous, something spontaneous, just comes up, spontaneous.
Okay.
Blessing.
So what is the difference between now the liturgical and that spontaneous?
So now, for example, when we are talking about the liturgy, we are talking about an activity, an action of worshiping God, but which is according to the church, according to the mind of the church. And so the church, when it is talking of any liturgical, for example, liturgical assembly, a liturgical gesture, it is talking, it has how it has stated that gesture to be. In other words, how that rite is to be. That's why, now, you know, the church has, because of historical backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, doctrinal backgrounds, the church has the Western Catholic Church and the Eastern Catholic Church. Now, that's why in the Eastern Catholic Church, a blessing is so important for the validity of the sacrament of marriage, that you can't talk of a marriage without a blessing of a priest. That's why for the Eastern Catholic churches, a blessing which is given of marriage is given by an ordained minister.
True.
Whereas in the
Latin.
West Church, in the Latin Church, the Roman Church, it's not the case. The marriage comes about by the consent of these two people. Two people.
And what does the church minister do now?
So now the church minister in a marriage is a witness, an official witness of the church. And so this even now what makes it to be a sacrament, because it entails a way in which the church does, which we call a canonical form. So now the liturgical blessing, now that's what is meant, especially in the concept of the Eastern Church, a liturgical blessing. But now the blessing which is talked about in these fiducia supplicans is spontaneous. Somebody spontaneously requests God for his mercy, invokes the mercy of God.
Father, when we read the document, in actual fact, the majority of the people, center mind came into the issue of same-sex unions.
Yeah.
And I want to first of all quote one of the documents from the Vatican, which it was a response 2 years ago in 2021, whereby the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith stated that the church does not have and cannot have the power to bless unions of persons of the same sex. The church does not have or cannot have the power to bless unions of persons of the same sex. And it further states that the declaration of the unlawfulness of blessings of unions between persons of the same sex is not intended to be a form of unjust discrimination. When the church says that it's not blessing people of the same union, sex union, it's not discrimination, but rather a reminder of the truth of the very nature of sacramentals as the church understands them. Now this was 2021. Come 2023, they're saying now we can bless same-sex unions. 2021, the church cannot have and cannot bless. So now ambiguity comes into play. The same church, our church, in the Catholic Catechism, was stating that when it comes to same-sex, which is homosexuality, it says, by tradition and sacred scripture, homosexual acts are acts of grave depravity. And even tradition declares that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered. Intrinsically disordered. They are contrary to natural law. They don't proceed from genuine affective and sexual complementarity. And therefore, under no circumstances can they be approved. So now, Father, I don't want to call it ambiguity. We are saying we cannot bless them. The Catechism says intrinsically evil, but don't discriminate them. Assist them on the journey for conversion. Now, when we are in a union, same-sex union, and we come before you, we're already expressing the fact that we have a union between us. If I come alone and I said, Father, I'm requesting for blessing, truly you cannot deny me that. But when I come with my partner, same sex, and I recognize him as my partner, and we come before you, what comes to a mind of someone, the perception, first perception is, are they seeking that they remain one? Are they seeking that, please, are we approving that this goes ahead? More so when there are two people together. So we are now in that confusion. We don't have the authority to bless, now bless. And the issue of we are blessing the persons but not the sin. But this time around, the sin is done by the two people together, without due respect. So, Father, exactly what did the church mean that no blessings, first of all, in 2021 for the same-sex unions? Yes. And this time now it says it is.
Now, always the doctrine of the church, the teachings of the church,
yes,
have always been growing in understanding. So, this not being something, a sacrament, and a sacramento, this being a sacramento, its understanding is also grows always. So that's why there is that kind of apparent ambiguity. So what you are saying formerly, that it says no, and now it is saying yes, with the explanation that here it is not talking of a sacrament. That's why with this document gives out the understanding of marriage in the church, that is between a man and a woman. You know, now this is another explanation to explain so that we are able to distinguish a sacrament from a sacramento. That as a sacrament, the church, the document here, does not in any way intend or does not in any way mean to change an understanding of marriage. That marriage is between a man and a woman. Now, with this sacrament, the sacramento of a blessing, it is only referring to a spontaneous, these people who are spontaneously giving, saying, oh, we need the will of God, we need to know what God wants of us. And this is exactly the reason why the African bishops come out and explain this in an African context, and say, no, that cannot be done in our context, because the culture, most of the culture, it's not only in fact African only, but at least this has come out so clearly.
Africa, Asia has been so clear.
Yes, it has come out so clearly. It's not an opposition what the church is saying, but that's why they come out clearly and they say, in Africa, the culture does not really permit this, because remember that before one becomes a Christian, is a human being, and who is in a certain culture, So that's why they come out and say, no, for us, in our culture, in our laws, because most of the laws which we have even in Africa, if these people come and express themselves that we are in a union,
yes,
we are in a union, most of our laws here which we have in Africa tell you that you have to denounce these people. So that's why the African bishops come out and say, no, this cannot be applicable here. This is not a protest against this teaching, but it's a more explanation, giving a more explanation, so that we can't overlook the cultures that we are having. We can't overlook the laws that we are having. So it's not that now the church has contradicted itself, but it's a growth in explaining. And even tomorrow, you might get another better, they can call it better, explanation of this concept. Because of these ambiguities which are coming in now, because of these misunderstandings which are coming in, you might get another better explanation.
Father, I'm within the communities and you are within the communities. You see, this issue of so for example, LGBT has been very much pronounced by the Western world, to the extent that they are calling it almost a human right. It is a right of someone to be this or this. So now, when it comes to the church, we are aware that truly such relationships are existing. But it's the duty of the church to assist whoever is involved in, because it has said it is intrinsically evil. So it's the duty of the church to assist people in the conversion. So now, when you say that even beyond the cultural aspect, say in Africa, and the majority of other Asian countries, we're seeing something like something that is being passed in the back door to come on the forefront by, say, the Western world and impose it indirectly maybe on the church. And possibly this would have been a specific document to a specific society and not necessarily the universal church. If they are aware already that all over Africa almost, culturally, impossible. Legislatively, in terms of the laws of the land, impossible. And then say, but if the people come to you, have the blessing. Indirectly, we are saying that, be it so to whoever is to whoever it is not a problem. But to you, where it is a problem, well, you may have your breaks. But sin is sin. The next thing would be possibly corruption, stealing. Well, in order to convert you, we give you the blessing so that we seek conversion. I don't know what your take further on that.
Yeah, that's why really somebody cannot come when he's expressing a situation which is convinced of a situation which is contrary to the will of God, contrary to nature, convincingly. Somebody cannot come and says, oh, then I need that blessing. Because, first of all, if it's in our context, it is against the culture. It will be terrible against the culture, against the law, but also against the teaching of the church on marriage and what marriage is. That marriage is between a man and a woman. So this person who comes when he is convincing, this person is not even looking for the mercy of God. Is not invoking God to help him or her find his way, his will, do his will. He's not doing that because he's already convinced. And with such a people, such a thing cannot be done with a priest because it will give an impression of a liturgical blessing.
And that's what took place in some, whatever, in the Western world. The day the document was out, the declaration, the next day, I quote, one priest was saying, at last I have the ability to bless you publicly without any fear or favor. And indirectly, these people are saying, we are looking forward to this particular moment and acknowledging that to us, it may be a sin for the church, but not to us. So,
that's where
that ambiguity, how are we going to...
That's where the confusion is.
Yes.
That now this thing cannot be done in a liturgical manner. And in such a way, it's done in a liturgical manner. Because this priest is so much aware of these people. And he knows that they are not seeking to find the will of God. Because the will of God about such a union is clear. So this person is not looking for that. He's already convinced. And so the moment it is done in that way, that gives an impression of a liturgical blessing. It gives an impression of a sacrament because it's already done in a church context by a church minister to a person who is so, they are so convinced. They know what they are doing. It's not that because this person who is coming for blessing is in a situation of not knowing. But these are people who are coming when they are so aware of what they are doing. They are so aware that that's the will of God. Those are the people whereby a blessing cannot be given.
But the priest now goes ahead and blesses them when he's already aware that their union is...
And that's the problem, that when such issues are rushed, the moment we begin rushing with such issues, that's why now there are a lot of these kind of explanations which are coming gradually from the different continents, from the different people, the different reactions come about, because that will already create a confusion, confusing a sacrament and a sacramento, and the sacramento. In other words, these people come when they are already convinced. They already know the union in which they are, and they know that this is the will of God. But for the church, this is not the will of God. And so because of that, there is no any way that you can give an ambiguity of blessing such a marriage. And it becomes very unfortunate in such a situation.
The church pastor is the one who's supposed to assist, partly assist in the conversion, spiritual conversion, or towards the journey. As the Pope has always expressed it, we should be journeying with these people. We journey with them to assist them to reach the truth of the church, or the truth of Christ as expressed by the church. Now, when the pastor says, well, that's the way you are created, that's where, so whether the church is recognizing it in a liturgical or non-liturgical way, to us to whom the blessing is being given, we are already convinced that what else do we need? We are before the priest, we are before the pastor, and hey, here we go ahead. And instead of saying, please, the union in which you are is not
in conformity with the will of God.
With the will of God and even of the church. And therefore I should be just using this moment to journey with them. Now one pastor of the church said that, I hope I quote him properly, sometimes they may be even in a better union and they are seeking God in truth. Now I say, now you are seeking God in truth, in His truth, when you are in a union that you are aware that is contrary to His will. So they are equally confused. Said, what do we do?
Now, that's the reason why, as a Christian, as a Catholic, you need to know what's the catechism of the church. What does the church teach in order to make us understand somehow our faith and appreciate and acknowledge our faith? And the catechism of the church you have just quoted, you have just read, is one way in which we see what the church really teaches us. Secondly, with this document which came out of this dicastery, this is not it's not a fixed teaching.
Doesn't it form part of the magisterium of the church?
The teaching of the church. Now, this is a teaching of the church.
Yes.
But it's not a fixed teaching. It's not a dogma, in other words. For example, we have fixed teachings now, like the Assumption of our Mother Mary. And so this, after a very long time. So that's why you are now seeing what is an apparent contradiction. That some years ago, the church in that documents which you have read says these people cannot be blessed in any way. That now the church says no, they can be blessed. This now gives you how the teaching, the doctrine of the church grows. Up to the time when it will come out as a dogma, a fixed teaching of the church, which cannot be changed, and there even the Holy Father will have to pronounce that when he is in his authority as a head of the Catholic Church. Now, these are all documents which come from, a dicastery. It's an office which helps the Pope on a day-to-day running of the church. And this dicastery of the doctrine of faith, this is what it deals with. Looking at these doctrines and then trying to explain them as time is going, as time goes. One of the better ways he has already come out, that reactions have come. Reactions from different continents, from different people have come against this. So the church there now is going to have more time to understand. But already an understanding is clear that this is not touching in any way the doctrine on marriage, as it has been taught by the church, how the church believes it, how the church believes the sacrament of marriage. But the document, how it comes out expecting all these reactions. And this is how a doctrine of a church grows. So that's why we can't look at these as contradictions. They are not contradictions, but they are means of the growing of a certain doctrine.
Yes, Father. I may appreciate that, but the Catholic Church worldwide is seen as one of the moral guarantors, if I'm to use the word.
Definitely, that is
The day the document came out, I recall seeing on the internet, some of the Anglicans and Presbyterian Church, they are saying that even where we had the hope, alas, it's now going to the contrary. And a few days in Christmas, one of the Anglican bishops here in Uganda said, we are happy with the African bishops, that they are still standing strong. They say, well, whatever happens, this cannot be. My fear is, or our fear is, we first say no to the evil, later on, we start watering it down in one way or another, looking things which may look to be logical and rational. That's why even the Western world is talking about rights, which were formerly even something which could not be pronounced that this is a human right. Then after that, even we start laughing at the very people who are protesting against that. Now the church as a guarantor of morals, when this came out, how come that it was almost a universal outcry, not particularly even sections, but a universal outcry, even within the Western world, saying, hey, can we take a closer look? What are we deciding against society? So when the word came, blessing of the same union, he said, bad is bad. There's nothing like blessing of the one who is supporting that or who is it. So up to what extent shall we say, well, the doctrine is growing. By the time maybe we become more alert, it's already down in the deep, and you can no longer. After all, we have been almost the only institution that has been saying no, no, no. And that's why some people are saying, maybe it were some few countries that were pressing the Holy See, the Vatican, according to us, and now it is applying to everybody. I don't see how you see it, Father.
This is not applying to everybody. That's why even this fiducia supplicans is not saying that now these kind of union relationships are okay. No, the document does not say that. So it is not giving a go-ahead. This we need to make it very clear. We need to make this very clear. First, the understanding of marriage, that this document does not in any way touch it. This document does not in any way point out to saying, these unions are okay. It is only saying that with those people who have these such unions, they still need to, they are still seeking, they need to seek. It's not about those who are convinced, but those who are seeking the mercy of God, to know the will of God. So it means there are some who are in such unions, but maybe in a confused manner. Those are the ones which the document is talking about. The document is
but not those who are already convinced that this is in order.
The document is not talking about that. It's not saying those who are already convinced come now for a blessing, because that will mean that it's legalizing first of all that union, and it is making it a sacrament. It's making it a sacrament. It's not it's making it a sacrament. Fiducia supplicans does not state that. Does not state that it's okay now. You come for a blessing, because that would imply that nowadays is becoming an alternative way of the sacrament of marriage.
Matrimony, yes.
The sacrament of marriage, because it's clear you are okay, you are already convinced in that state, but it is talking of a blessing, and we are saying that a blessing, one who seeks for a blessing is seeking for the mercy of God, is invoking the mercy of God, is saying, you know, I need really God to show me His way.
So he's realizing that there's something wrong with the union,
exactly,
and is now trying to seek how to convert.
He's trying to find out, is this here the will of God? And so the church now goes on helping this person. How is the church helping this person? By telling this person that marriage as a sacrament for the church is between a man and a woman. So I repeat, it's to those people who really seek to find the will of God, not those who are already convinced. They're already convinced, so they always say, we have been in this situation all along, now at last we come so that a go-ahead is given. That's why we said from the very beginning that a blessing is not a go-ahead. And many times the moment we look at a blessing as a go-ahead, these are the implications. Whenever we are looking at a blessing as a confirmation, these are the implications. These are the implications. But a blessing, it's an invocation of the mercy of God. You are requesting for the mercy of God. And when you are requesting for the mercy of God, it means you are in a terrible situation. And in fact, this is the attitude that we need to have always when we are looking for a blessing. Even if I take my rosary to a priest that, please, Father, bless my rosary. This is the attitude of which I go with. I go with this attitude that I'm nowhere. I seek the will of God to be done as I use this rosary.
I think there you need to do a bit of more catechesis, because we thought that it's luck, it is, I would like to say it's charm,
automatic.
It's automatic, magical. Father,
it's a go-ahead, it's a confirmation.
In the same line, you'll excuse me, I have to quote Pope Francis at one time when he said, "Who am I to judge?" The word quoted him, the Holy Father has spoken.
Yes.
Who am I to judge? Now when this document comes out, this declaration, some are seeing it as a follow-up of who am I to judge? He said, you see, the Holy Father said, whom am I to judge? Now here we are. Isn't it a slow but sure way of going where some people would like to go? Instead of saying that, I'm actually thinking loud. The pastoral approach towards assisting LGBT, and the church gives guidelines on how best to assist them, other than blessing, who am I to judge, and other. So we are playing in the realm of the, if I'm to use the word, the devil. He's saying, use those soft words, and at the end of the day, you give me one card, you give me another card, and at the end of the day we shall be at last. Here we are. So what's your opinion about that?
That's why this document, this Fiducia Supplicans, is merely about blessings. That's the cause. Supplicate is asking trustfully about these blessings. This question of unions of the same sex comes in as in fact, it comes in because of that doubt which the Pope was giving to those two cardinals about this question of blessing. So it comes out in that way. But the whole document is not about that. The whole document is not about unions of the same sex. It's about blessing. And the blessing, the way we are trying to understand it and to explain it in this way. So now, when we apply it to those people, then it's them to seek, to look. Now, on the question, on the issue of the Pope saying, who am I to judge?
Yes.
Who am I to judge is not saying that you can leave those people. You leave them to go on, who are we to judge? Because if that's what the Pope meant, and that's not what he meant, if that's what he meant, that would mean giving a go-ahead to any activity of a human being, even to thieves, people who are corruptors. Who am I to judge them? Who am I to judge them? So even to this question, he says, who am I to judge? As a person, as a person. But this in no way does it touch the authentic teaching of the church.
Maybe you should use this chance to tell our listeners and viewers exactly who am I to judge, what exactly he meant. Because what did he exactly mean?
Now, for him as
the spirit of the Holy Father.
For him as a person, looks at these people that they also need the mercy of God.
True.
They need to convert so that they're able to do the will of God, what God willed for a natural union. So, he says now these people find themselves as a human being. Now, because here we have to look at the Pope even from the perspective of a human being. A human being who feels mercy for these people. And so he says now, who am I really to judge? Because that's not the teaching of the church. The teaching of the church is clear about the union that is between a man and a woman. It's so clear about it. But as a human being, feels sympathy for these people. And so he's able to say, who am I to judge? That's why when it comes to the authentic teaching of the church, and he gives that as a teaching of the church ex cathedra, in his office as the head of the church, cannot say such a, who am I to judge? Because that will imply indifferentism. It's a personal, a personal approach. It's indifferent. But the church has what it stands on.
In actual fact, Father, one of the issues that came following this declaration, the aspect of relativism, that we are not holding to a particular truth.
Yeah.
Now the truth is having so many platforms. Don't you think it could be part of the problem of this document, whereby say, well, what is the truth? The truth remains the truth.
That's
and
right.
The truth is one. The union created by God is this. Anything that, when not necessarily being judgmental, but anything contrary to the will of God and natural law is already, from the word go, wrong. And
Sinful.
It's sinful. So don't you think that we are now playing also with the relativism everywhere? The truth, it depends upon, someone said, when I'm in Uganda, I not bless the union, the people who come in such union. But when I go to the US, I bless them. Isn't that double standards?
That's why.
Father Kato doesn't bless here, but when he's in Germany, he can do it.
That's the reason exactly why we need to know exactly what's the authentic teaching of the church. What the Pope, as the head of the church, declares out of his office as a head of the church. This which is in fiducia supplicans is not declared in that way. It's not a fixed dogma, which we say. And so that's why also we need to know what the church stands for in most of these issues, like the sacrament, like the sacramentals, like the question of marriage. Does the church really stand for marriage? What does it say about marriage? And I repeat, and I've been repeating this continuously, that it must be a union between a man and a woman in the first place. To do what? For their good, to bring up forth the children, and also to educate them. So otherwise, if that is what is now touched, then the indifferentism comes in. But as a growth of a doctrine, these are all the issues which are expected, and we are also seeing what comes out in a humble way. Because, for example, the African bishops in their letter which they wrote, they presented it in a very humble way. Though some people are looking at it as a rebuke, as a protest. It's not a protest, but they are presenting it in a very humble way, that according to the culture that we have. So that's why it's not a dogma. It's not a fixed teaching. It's not a fixed teaching.
So Father,
it's not an indifferentism.
Yeah. What advice would you give your fellow pastor when people come here near in Uganda, minus the cultural aspect and the legislation in the country? What advice would you give a pastor who's approached by people who say, Father, we're in this union, but we need your blessing?
Now, that document which came about, I think you have it, of the African bishops.
Yes.
Which was signed by the SECAM. Now, this document here is the guideline for
at least the African,
a priest who is in this context. This is the guideline, because we have the cultures, we have the laws of the countries, of the individual countries, and these laws of the individual countries must be respected unless if they are contrary the divine law. but these laws are not contrary to the divine law. So the guideline should be in that letter. That letter should be read by most of the Catholic, not most, but all Catholic priests to understand.
But this is the position of the African.
This is the position. This is our position. This is the position which we are having, and also to know what are sacraments, what are sacramentals, and also to know the nature of this document.
The nature of the document.
Of the document. It's not a fixed teaching. It's not a dogma. You see? It's not a dogma. Because if it's a fixed teaching, now like what we have, I gave you an example from the beginning, the Blessed Mother, Assumption of our Mother. That would be very different. And in fact, for so many years, the Church has not declared any doctrine as a dogma. It has not. But it is giving out continuously teachings. But these teachings now, because of this kind of procedures, they come themselves into certain cultures, into certain philosophies that they cannot enter into. One of the examples even which we have is the one which was given in 1969 by Pope Paul VI about the human life, humanity. That one also received a lot of not resistance, but a lot of discussion.
Yes.
It came out as, and from that time, it has not been declared as a dogma. It's not a dogma.
But the Church
but it is
stands
a
by
guidelines, yes.
The
It
Church
stands by it as a guideline.
For pastoral purposes.
Yes. So that's why here, even when we are talking of the blessing, we talk of the blessing from a pastoral point of view. But looking at it from the point of view of the theology of the Catholic Church, that it's not a go-ahead. Blessing is not a go-ahead. A blessing is not something which is just automatic.
Yes.
A blessing is a sign of faith, is a supplication, is an invitation of one to enter into a dialogue with God. One who is not ready to enter, who is already sure. Then when you talk of a blessing, you are talking of something else, but not, you are not talking of a blessing. A blessing, you must be sure that, I really seek the will of God. I need to know the will of God.
Father, as we are about to conclude, in the aftermath of the putting out of the declaration, early the first week of January this year, the same dicastery started giving an explanatory note and said, in fact, he used the word casual, spontaneous. He said, don't give a long prayer. It should be a short one. And you should not be putting on the robes and everything. Make it as simple as it can, as long as they are somehow, in fact, you use somehow satisfied. Then you said, oh my Lord, now casual, spontaneous, make it short, and then don't show it that it's a real serious. So I say that, but a blessing is invoked from God. And therefore, it has what we would call the good consequences of it, even if it's seeking mercy. Now, if he said small, short prayer, don't take it very serious, don't make them even look at it as it's very serious. And so even the explanatory notes that are coming out from the dicastery, our Father, in fact, they were saying it is in response to the so many, what it called, attacks to the...
And also something which we have to understand is that when we are talking about these questions of sacraments, it's not about emotions. It's not about what we feel. It's not about satisfying somebody, making somebody feel good. Because with the sacraments and sacramentals, they are not magical things. They are not things only to touch your emotions, but to touch the whole person. So saying that, no, it should be short, it shouldn't appear in that way. The dicaster, what it is saying, it says, let's not do anything which will give an impression of a sacrament. Let's not do something which is in a liturgical form, in a liturgical manner. Liturgical manner meaning that according to what the Church expresses something to be done. That's what it implies.
But Father, can you dwell with the perception? Because perception also matters. What has somebody perceived of a particular action? So how do we handle the perceptions? Because it's not as easy as we may look at it that when I see this, this is my perception of it.
That's the meaning, the understanding, why we need to understand the sacraments and sacramentals so clearly, and to make it so clear even to the rest of the people. Because even to a Christian, he needs to understand this. Because if you don't understand this distinction between a sacrament and sacramento, then definitely it will be like an emotional thing. Just an emotional.
So our dear listeners, ladies and gentlemen, and our viewers, we are very grateful. Of course, this is a very big and long topic, which needs even more time to come to those facts. Maybe even we need to know the catechesis of the sacraments now, what the blessings are. But if I'm to properly put things into perspective, here in Africa, and maybe particularly here in Uganda, if you're in such a union, don't expect to come before a priest seeking for a blessing from the word go. And maybe you can come to the priest saying that, can you assist me in my journey of getting out of this? That's what I'm trying to think. They're doing the counseling and everything. Then secondly, people giving their ideas and their reasons behind whatever. We may be looking at, we're not protesting against the Holy Father, but we are trying to understand exactly how best we can move and journey with the people in their journey to heaven. Yes. In the interest of time, we are very grateful to UNCCLA. We are very grateful for Father Dr. Andrew Kato, and we believe we shall be able to continue on this series and come more, even more, even debating it outside here. Yes. Not for the sake of whatever, but seeking understanding and to journey in our faith. Thank you very much, and we are very grateful to everyone. May you have a very good evening. Thank you. Father, may give us a blessing. A casual one? No.
Not a casual one. Yes. May really that God bless us in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you.
UCTV. Good news for all.